Good afternoon. My name is Stacia Stelk, and I'm pleased to welcome you to Deep Roots Native Gardening Webinar Series. Deep Roots is hosting these webinars on Tuesday afternoons at 4 o'clock Central Time. To find out about upcoming webinars or to watch one that you might have missed, please visit our website at deeprootskc.org. Click on Webinars under Events in the drop-down menu. Deep Roots is pleased to announce that our Native Plant Landscaping Conference is moving to an online platform. Scheduled for 3 half days in September, Planet Native will host regional and national experts to get into the weeds on native plants. The virtual conference features an exhibit hall, roundtable discussions, and even office hours with our speakers. Before we get started this afternoon, don't forget to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A tool and make comments with its chat feature. At the end of today's presentation, we will take a few minutes to answer the most popular questions. Today, we welcome Roberta Vogel-Leutung to talk about replacing your turf lawn with sedges. Roberta has a background in ecology and has landscaped her entire yard with native plants. With a walking path and multiple seating areas, Roberta and her husband Stan have created a native plant wonderland right in their own yard. Please join me in welcoming Roberta to discuss replacing your lawn with sedges.
All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm a little overwhelmed at how many of you are out there. I was expecting like 5 people to come today, so, so welcome. Some of you know me, some of you, my name is Roberta, and I am a native landscaping addict, and I can't help myself. I just have so much fun. So I've been doing this for about 20 years, really as a hobbyist. And I thought it'd be fun to give you a little bit of my background around this stuff. So the picture on the far left there is my first house I ever owned. It's about 2 blocks from my current house. And that's a picture from 17 years ago. On the bottom, the Kansas City Star picture, before and after some native landscaping that I'd been working on for about 3 years. And shortly after that, the city cut the whole thing down. It was a big clerical error, and broke my heart in a million little pieces. And we were moving, so I kind of left that place. And now the new owners, the second new owners, are literally taking it all out. So I just want you to know that there's wins and losses in native landscaping, and I learn by doing, and I make lots of mistakes. I like to get dirty, and I also like to get clean. So give you a sense of where we started. Our current house is on the left, and one failure I had was after I got over the city cutting my last yard down. It took about 5 years for me to do that. I started to try to add native things to our current yard. And it didn't work because there were way too many invasives, and I just kept losing things. So we decided to create a blank slate. We removed 22 invasive trees. We removed shrubs that didn't have any wildlife value, like privet. We removed weedy vines like sweet autumn clematis and winter creeper. And we removed uninteresting, like overgrown junipers from the foundation plantings, old dying fruit trees. And we just started from scratch. We removed old ugly fencing and old play equipment. So what you can see there is we wanted to create a view of the yard that would be really open. Previously, there were lots of shrubs hanging over the sidewalk along that wall, and nobody could see into the yard, and there was ugly fencing. So we wanted to create an open view so people would feel welcome to come through, walk through, and to be curious about it. And then, what else did I want to say about that? Oh, this is 4 years ago. We just added a slight berm across the front. It's hard to see in this picture. And Jill DeWitt from Urban Wilderness Design helped us do that. So this is like maybe year 2 of this blank slate. So why sedges? Well, there's 2 big reasons: ecology and design. So first of all, sedges are ecologically contributing. Their seed heads are food, their roots and their seasonal cycles contribute organic matter to the soil and biology to the soil. They provide a green mulch or shade for root zones when they're interplanted with other plants. And they save resources from going into lawn care. They reduce noise pollution, which is my personal favorite. And I think if I were to have a native landscaping t-shirt, it would say one less leaf blower. Looks like Stacia wants me to start my video, but it won't let me, Stacia. Is that pop-up that says start the video visible to everybody? Is that in the way?
Can't see it. You're fine.
Okay, all right.
I'm just having some technical issues from the
backside. In the middle
backside.
of my screen and it won't go away. Okay, anyway, so then from a design perspective, they're just interesting. So it's easy to create a semi-formal aesthetic for small spaces, as you can see. They're versatile, sedges for every landscape, every shape, every height, from sun to shade, from wet to dry. And they're great alone or planted or interplanted with forbs. So just like any plant, right place is a good beginning framing for how to choose what'll work with sedges. In urban spaces, you're going to want to think about microclimates and mixed sun shade conditions. So my front yard can have full sun and full shade at different times of the day in the same area, and it's really patchy. Think too about the aesthetic that you're after. Do you want them to be short or tall, formal, informal, that kind of thing? So some decisions you want to make in the fall, if you want to plant in the spring, you're going to want to think about what you want and let a commercial grower know. So because you might need, like in our case, we planted 900. So we needed a place where we can get 900. You want to determine how many you need, obviously, and you do that by dividing your square footage by the feet of spacing. So in our case, or not as an example, 100 square feet divided by a 1 foot spacing would be 100 plants. We use 900 plants. Think about how far apart you want them, how quickly it grows, what you can afford, that kind of thing. So that sedge that we use, Prestigilis, on the far left is more wispy and clumps, and the oak sedge that's in the far right is more of a semi-formal, nice mounding sedge. So generally you want to use plugs because they're more affordable. We got ours at the Kaw River Restoration Nursery. And I think that Stacia is going to clip some things into the chat in terms of resources that are really good for looking up details about sedge and finding out more about them. You want to think a little bit also about where they grow naturally, and you can look that up in any USDA database for the sedge you're thinking about. So again, that picture on the left is Carex prestigilis. That's the clustered field sedge that we use for our quote lawn. The one in the middle is burr or gray sedge. We use that on the edge of a shady rain garden. And that's also versatile in terms of sun and shade. And then the one on the right is the oak sedge. So again, choosing sedges, these are all the things you would think about, just like you would in any other plant. You want to think about the light conditions, and one of the things you can do, especially if you have like a patchy yard, is during the summer when you've got bright light, record all day long how the sun moves so you can really see how much sun you think about moisture. Is it mostly dry, mostly wet, or average? Think about your soil. It's easy to research simple soil tests you can do at home. So there's a big difference between a gumbo heavy clay mix and something that's more porous or loamy and well drained, or something that's rich and humusy like a woodland or woodland edge, or something that's really compacted and devoid of organic matter, which is typically the soil underneath a lawn that's been there for a while. Think about drainage. Does the area drain well, or does it stay moist for a while after the rain? How easy is it to maintain? Does it fill in nicely? Does it self-seed? Does it spread by rhizomes? Does it get too tall or too short? So those are maintenance questions. And then finally, think about aesthetics. What does it look like in masses for your lawn or other large areas? What color is it? What shape is it? What height is it? What does its seed head look like? What seasonal interest does it have? So I'm going to show you a few slides of what I call a few goodies. These are some of my favorites and ones that I use in my own yard. This is a really common one that lots of people use for lawns, and it's called Carex pennsylvanica, Pennsylvania sedge. On the left, there's a picture of it in a native forest in North Carolina. In the center, there's a picture of it in a local yard of a friend of mine. And on the right, you could see it on the berm that we have, kind of filling in between the hydrangeas. So we're trying to get that berm nice and covered up with vegetation so that it holds moisture. It's nice. What's nice about this one is it's really versatile from sun to shade, as long as the soils are at least average and well drained. Here on the left is Carex jamesii, or James sedge. We have this under a hackberry tree near our wall in the neighbor's driveway. It's very compacted, and this has been there for about 3 years, so it's kind of growing slowly because it is so compacted, but it is starting to make headway in that area. It looks a lot like Pennsylvania sedge, but a smaller version. And it's quite versatile too. It'll do well in dry shade, particularly. It will do in dry areas as long as it's shady, is what I really want to say. And then this palm sedge. This is a wetland sedge. It can grow up to 2 feet, so you could put it in rain gardens or average to moist areas of your regular garden. It will work in sun to shade, and it's clay tolerant. It looks kind of tropical. It's about 2 feet tall. It's branched. It's a really nice filler. And we have a patch of it, as you can see here, along a path in a woodland corner of on the northwest part of our yard. And then this Carex eburnia, the picture is a little deceptive. This is a little tiny sedge. It's just a few inches tall. It's bright green tufts. It hugs the ground. It's evergreen. And it occurs in dry shade on glades, typically under cedars. It's a spreader. So we have this on a little skinny berm between the sedge lawn and a rain garden that we have, and that berm's going to be pretty dry, as most berms would be. Here is Carex squarosa, or narrow-leaved cattail sedge. We have this on the edge of a large rain garden. This again wants to be moist. It's about 2 feet tall. It's really structural, like the gray sedge. It has really cool seed heads. It likes part shade and, of course, moisture. Fox sedge, I don't even want to say vulpinoidea, but I'll try. This one wants to be in moisture too, but it'll do sun to shade. We have this on the bowl of a couple of our rain gardens, one in sun and one in kind of part shade. And then Carex blanda, this is kind of cool because this is common wood sedge, and it just so happens to, while it occurs in kind of average woodlands, it will show up in your yard a lot, and it will colonize kind of at the edge of trails where it's been kind of worn down. So it's really, I did not plant this, and I have lots of them in my yard. And so I dig them up and move them and put them where I want them. And sun to medium shade, moist to average conditions. It tolerates a wide range of soil types. So I highly recommend looking for that in your yard. It's probably already there. So how do you prepare a site for a sedge lawn? There's many things that you can do, and these are not in any particular order, but I'll go through them one at a time. On the top left, you see all that cardboard. That's called solarization or sheet mulching. You just put thick cardboard down, you wet it, and you cover it up with some kind of compost or non-woody mulch. It takes time. It takes a season or more. You can plant through cardboard, but I would not recommend planting a sedge lawn through cardboard because you'd be cutting like 900 holes, and that would be not worth it. But if you've got some time, you can solarize like that. You could repeat till. This is what we did. That's that top center picture. You have to do it, multiple times, a couple weeks apart. So it takes about 6 weeks because the grass roots are tenacious. So you till and you kind of let it die back, and you pull off the thatch and you do it again. It worked. One of the things about tilling is it does bring up a lot of weed seeds. We were trying to move quickly, and so that's what we did. You can rent a sod cutter. That's the bottom one, and cut sod off, but you will lose topsoil unless you compost it and put it back, which also will take a while. You can dig. We did this under a big maple tree because the lawn was already, it was pretty easy just to dig out the little pieces that were there. And you can use herbicides. I really don't recommend this for small spaces. I think that it's not necessary. There's so many other options, and there's an opportunity to model something different. I think we don't want to add chemicals to the environment whenever we can avoid it. because they do affect wildlife and humans. Roundup definitely impacts soil biology, especially with repeated use. So that's going to limit your success if you're impacting your soil biology. So if you do choose this route, though, make sure that you wait 2 to 3 weeks before you do plant or follow instructions. So one of the other things you need to do for site preparation is think about organic matter. You know, when you're removing a lawn, believe it or not, because the lawn's roots are so shallow, and oftentimes when houses are put in, the topsoil is removed, you can often have low organic matter even under a lawn, an established lawn. So you can reach out to Extension for testing, or you could just add compost. Hillary Noonan, who's another Deep Roots partner, recommends 8% organic matter. We added about 2 inches. The other thing you want to do is put in your structural features first, because it'd be really hard to do that once you plant. So we went ahead and put in our landscaping, edging, and our path. So for installation, you just like if you were tiling a floor in your house and it's oddly shaped, you would start in the center and move towards the edges. So it's not any different really. We use plumb lines. You can see that red arrow points to a plumb line, and that's just putting a string on a couple pieces of stake that you can put straight across the area you're working so that you don't plant in a crooked line. And I just use a simple ruler. You could see it there with the green arrow to space the plants, because we use 1 foot centers. And there's no reason for this to be perfect as plants fill in. It just looks nice when they're kind of on a grid, but they don't have to be perfectly on a grid. We work from plywood because it helps you to avoid compacting your soil. And then we finished with hay mulch for moisture. And then we dug a trench next to our sidewalk so that if there was a big rain, we wouldn't get soil washing off into the sidewalk. So this is the finished pictures of after we planted. I mean, immediately after. And this is 2017. Yeah, so this is 3 years ago. So maintenance. I have several choice words for squirrels. One of the things they do is pull out plugs. And they did not eat mine, they just pulled them out because I made the soil nice and loose and they could dig more easily for acorns, and this is surrounded by oak trees. So that will happen, and so you'll have to go out every day and put them back. Light but regular weeding is all we really had to do, and that's still the case to today, not much, but some. Hillary Noonan also has a company called Mad Hatter Compost Tea. So she treated this with compost tea, which basically inoculated it with soil biology a couple years in a row. The field sedge in the center picture is in its 3rd year there. So you could see it's still growing in, but it looks pretty full. It looked pretty good, I'd say, after the 1st year. The oak sedge we used 4-inch pots for, so that grew in a little more quickly, maybe in 2 years. During the 1st year, we gave it about 1 inch of water a week, but after that, we haven't been watering it regularly. If we hit a dry spell in August, September, we may water, but that's it. You can mow it if necessary. Any sedge could be mowed, just mow it to 4 or 6 inches. Most of them hold up and you don't need to do it. We found out that this particular sedge, if you have a rainy spring and it grows really tall, it'll kind of be wispy and fall over flat in July and August. So that surprised us. So we decided to give it a haircut this year in late May and just let it grow back and be a little shorter so it doesn't fall over. So it looks a little bit like a shaved kitty right now. And then when I'm mowing, I also stick flags where I have different flowers interplanted, so I don't mow them over by accident. So this is one of my favorite things about our front, is that we're able to interplant the sedges with forbs so that we don't have just green stuff in the front. And we're building seasonal interest. So we interplanted our oak sedge border, and I'll go around starting at the top left and explain what each of these photos are. We chose things that do well in a mixed sunshade environment, that are shorter or more formal plants. You know, the things that are gonna look nice and would be easily trimmed back if they're finished flowering. So the one on the top left is Indian pink, that does well in true shade. And the next one is Penstemon digitalis, that tolerates quite a bit of shade. Wild petunia, that wants to be in the sun to flower, but it'll actually grow in shade, it just won't flower much. We interplanted the Sedges, and all these other things are interplanted in the oak sedge. Bradbury's monarda, lovely little monarda that will do quite a bit of shade. Wild geranium, really lovely in the springtime. Harebells, interplanted those between the oak sedge just this year, and they're coming up. Wild pinks, purple coneflowers, and then not pictured, we also have bluebells and celestial lily for the springtime, interplanted with the oak sedge. So some things to consider around design is both just the aesthetics in general, but also making connections between the different parts of your yard or the different parts of your garden. I mean, we have a double lot, so we have a lot more to connect, but even if you have a small space, you want to interconnect the pieces. So the first picture here from the top left, it shows you how we have sort of a semi-formal aesthetic in the front, and then there's that berm, and then if you go behind the berm and the double lot, it gets a lot wilder. And the second, third, and fourth picture on top, it shows you how we're connecting these different rooms to one another. So you could see the curving path connecting the front sedge lawn to a rain garden and to what's developing as a woodland garden under the maple tree. On the bottom, you can see the winter interest. So both the sedges and the forbs create winter interest and fall interest. There's that little cutout in the bottom where you could see my husband's head sticking out, is just showing you what happens to oak sedge in the seasons. It gets a little brown on the edge and it remains a little green, but it looks kind of pretty with the snow on it. The other thing is, I don't know, this is my personal thing, is that I really want to welcome people, because I think if we want more people to understand this and do it, they have to feel good and comfortable. So I like to bring people through, and my neighbor Janet, who's pictured with me, loves to walk through and loves to bring people through, and she likes to sneak over and ask me, peek over the fence and say, what's that? And then come on over and visit. We're starting to add site signage. I don't have the sign yet, but I have an artist working on a formal sign, and then we'll be also adding more formal plant tags and kind of take one brochures in the front, so people who are walking by can feel like they can ask questions and they could be curious. And that's it. So just let me know if you have any questions. I think Stacia has to do some magic.
Hi, Roberta, that was wonderful. I love how you have seasonal interest and have interspersed lovely flowers among the sedges. That's wonderful.
Okay.
Yay. Okay, so I did share in the chat box the 5 links that you recommended for one of your slides. And then one of our questions was like, where do you get inspiration, magazines or websites or books, when you start informing your design choices and picking from the myriad choices we have?
Yeah, so I've been doing it for a while, so I have lots of answers to that. When I first started out, even though I studied ecology, I never thought about the ecology of my yard. And there was this really cool magazine that went defunct called like Wild Gardens or something, and that was my original inspiration. And since then, I've collected my crazy library of books. But as I've gone through, I've been doing this for 20 years now, I have a pretty intuitive sense of things, and I'm not that researchy anymore. Like I follow those general guidelines, like I mentioned, right plant, right place, and all those considerations, and then I try things out. Like for the ones that are in front here, these are all really tried and true plants that I've seen do well in lots of places, and so that kind of informed the front. In the back, I might try some more experimental things. Yeah.
Right plant, right place, right? Experiment in the back and show off in the front.
Yeah. Yeah, don't torture the neighbors with my backyard experiments.
So Kathleen asked, when you were talking about site preparation, she would like for you to define and maybe explain a little bit more about solarization.
Yeah, so solarization is you kill the grass, right? So solarization is just a fancy way of saying you're smothering it and cooking it. Now, some people solarize with plastic. I think my personal view is that probably gets a little too hot and you might cook some of the good soil biology that you don't want to cook. So basically what you're doing is you're smothering it. And then what happens is that grass gets to compost right where it is and add organic matter to the soil. Is that enough of an answer?
I think that's perfect, yes.
Okay.
What kind of maintenance do you do in the fall? One of our anonymous attendees wants to know, should it be cut to the ground? Do you leave it be?
Yeah, I leave it be. You know, as you know, us crazy people that like native landscapes also like to leave the leaves. And I have asked myself whether I should rake them back from the sedges in the spring, because, you know, they catch them, you know, that makes sense that they would catch the leaves. And I've decided not to, and they do fine. So, and you know, it doesn't look bad because it just, as they grow in, it just sort of covers them up. And then you've got this like nice little mulch that's there. So I've left them. That's all I've done personally.
And leaving, you know, and the structure, leaving the structure is really good for our native bees and pollinators and other critters. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I can't speak about sedges because I don't know that they have the hollow, you know, stems the way that other things do. Maybe someone on this call who knows more than I do can chime in about that.
So I do have a question from someone who wants to know, how did the city accidentally cut down your first native yard?
Well, okay, this was before native landscaping was cool. And it was a really tough year for us. My mom died, my sister died. I moved to Atlanta to take care of my sister's kids. We were rehabbing our house. We were moving to this house and we were getting married. So we were kind of busy and it did look a little weedy. And the city, we got a weed complaint, but we never got it because the city inspector thought the home was unoccupied because we were rehabbing it. So there was no, like if you look in the window, you wouldn't see any furniture. And so they sent it to our mortgage company, of course, and so we never got it. So we never knew. And so then all the wheels just kept churning, no response. They sent their contractors out and they were like butchers, you know, they cut down small trees and shrubs. It was merciless. It was everything. So they made it right. And I think that's an extreme example. It was definitely a clerical error, though an expensive one. And these days you can still get cited, you know, because we are complaint driven, but I think most people are able to talk to codes and to make it go away if there's some kind of like misunderstanding like that. So.
Yes, it seems like your story is a series of unfortunate events. Everything that could go wrong sort of did go wrong.
Yeah, I was like, and I didn't know that it was the city at first, and I just sat back there and cried for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I was a commissioner for the department that did it, so you know, I had a little bit of pull to get them to come to make it right.
Right.
So.
Well, before I move on to the next question, I do want to say, when I shared the link, I put them in the wrong part of the chat. And so my colleague Mary has reshared them. So now hopefully all of our attendees can see the links that you recommended. And let me see one more thing. Do you mind clicking back to your flowers? I've had several people ask for you to re-identify the flowers that, that you interspersed in your sedges.
Oh, it's not letting me.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Yeah, it's not letting me. Is it because are you overriding the screen share at all?
No, I'm not. I have found that
Let me try a new share, see if it'll show up.
Okay, sounds good.
Huh. Yeah, can you see that?
I can see that. Perfect, yes, please.
Okay, question?
There you go. So if you would please identify, just kind of quickly go through those
Again?
flowering plants, that would be great. I've had lots of
Okay.
questions on it.
Yeah, the top left is Indian pink, and next to that on the right is Penstemon digitalis, foxglove beard tongue. To the right of that is wild petunia. That's the one that really wants to bloom in the sun, although it grows in the shade, it was not going to bloom in the shade so much. To the right of that is Monarda bradburyana, or Bradbury's Monarda. It's about 2 feet tall and just lovely. It'll grow in shade or sun. And on the bottom left is wild geranium. It's one of our spring, it's not really ephemeral because the leaves do stay around during the summer. They don't look very nice during the summer, so that's why I put some other things to come up in the summertime around it. That's not a great picture, but the one next to that is harebells, which is one of the campanellas. And the one next to that is a very low growing pink. It's almost like a ground covery pink. And behind it, you'll see some star tickseed coreopsis. That's really on the berm. It's not in the sedges. And then next to that is purple coneflower.
Lovely. So I have one last question, and then I'm going to make an announcement for our guests. And so Val asked, what weeds have been the most difficult for you? And do your neighboring lawns have weeds that blow in or get transferred in from your lovely squirrel companions, for example?
Yeah, there's this little corner of the yard that had bindweed really bad, and I've never been able to really, I've never been able to get it to completely go away, but it's not terrible. It's like that really fine kind of bindweed. We get some dandelions. We'll get the, some weeds I don't mind, like the oxalis is like, I just let it go because it's pretty and it doesn't really invade very much. I have a tiny bit, every once in a while, I'll have to pull out a tiny bit of like other people's grasses that blow in, and sometimes it's crabgrass, but mostly it's just like, you know, somebody's lawn. And the more I do this, the more I start to recognize like the seed heads of things, like, oh, that's not a sedge, and can pull it out. So that's about it. I just have not, it's not been a huge problem at all.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So a disturbing conversation with my 14-year-old this afternoon. I was telling her about the webinar I was about to host and what you and I were going to be talking about. And she said, wait, so grass isn't native? Like, no, honey, sadly not. We're going to fix that altogether, right? So I've had several people ask about the YouTube video. So if you've missed part of this or want to go back and take some detailed notes that you missed, later this week, we will be able to upload this entire webinar to our YouTube channel. And to find an easy link, just go to our website and you'll be able to click on it then and capture the whole thing again. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. Roberta, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. It's always a joy to see photos of your lawn and to walk through your lawn through your yard, and because it's just a lovely experience. And it's just an inspiration for, you know, I am like holding on by my fingernails, trying to catch up with everybody who knows so much about this stuff. And I see where I can go, and it's inspiring. So thank you.
Yeah, and come visit anytime.
Excellent. So if you have unanswered questions, I hope that you will visit or email us at hello@deeprootskc.org. We hope that you will find our website, deeprootskc.org, to be a resource. We can help you find native plants, plant a garden, and more. And if you like what you heard today and would like to support Deep Roots and our webinar series, please consider making a donation. Finally, I hope to see you in September at Planet Native. And thank you again for joining us. And Roberta, thank you again for your time. I hope you can join us next Tuesday when we host Linda Hessel presenting Native Edibles, Plants for Humans and Wildlife. Stay well, everyone, and thanks for being here.